United Nations endorses declaration on two-state solution. Former Chief Justice sworn in as Nepal's interim Prime Minister. Good afternoon and Salam Malaysia Madani. This is World Today. I am Olivia Nicholas. The United Nations General Assembly has overwhelmingly voted to endorse a declaration outlining tangible, time-bound and irreversible steps towards a two-state solution between Israel and Palestine ahead of a meeting of world leaders. The 7-page declaration is the result of an international conference at the United Nations in July, hosted by Saudi Arabia and France on the decades-long conflict. A resolution endorsing the declaration received 142 votes in favour and 10 against, while 12 countries abstained. The vote comes ahead of a meeting of world leaders on the 22nd of September on the sidelines of the high-level UN General Assembly, where multiple countries are expected to formally recognise a Palestine state. The declaration condemns the attacks by Israel against civilians and civilian infrastructure in Gaza, siege and starvation, which have resulted in a devastating humanitarian catastrophe and protection crisis. The declaration endorsed by the resolution says the war in Gaza must end and supports the deployment of a temporary international stabilization mission mandated by the UN Security Council. On a related note, Malaysia has reaffirmed its unwavering support for Palestine by voting in favor of the resolution on endorsement of the declaration. The Foreign Ministry said the collective commitment and acceptance of the two-state solution and recognition of the state of Palestine as a key step forward to end Israel's atrocities in the occupied Palestinian territory was a crucial point in Malaysia's decision to back the resolution. It said Malaysia stated its position clearly after the vote that the realization of the two-state solution and recognition of the state of Palestine should not be subject to any preconditions. Malaysia urged that the shortcomings and limitations in the declaration be addressed fully through concrete measures and a time-bound action plan to protect the Palestinians' fundamental freedom and their right to statehood. Meanwhile, Israeli military operations killed at least 50 people in Gaza yesterday as the army stepped up its attacks on Gaza City. Gaza's Civil Defense Agency said at least 35 people were killed in the city, along with another 15 in other parts of the territory. The Civil Defense Agency said a single strike in the northwest of Gaza City killed at least 14 people, with the majority of them were children and women. Israel began targeting tall buildings in the area a week ago, claiming they were being used by Hamas. It said it would intensify the pace of targeted strikes in order to disrupt Hamas as part of preparations for the next stages of the operation. While the Israeli army has issued multiple evacuation warnings for Gaza City, many residents noted that they have nowhere else to go, noting Israel has repeatedly struck the area in the south to which it has urged people to move. The United Nations estimates there were around 1 million people in and around Gaza City as of late August and warned that evacuating them all could have disastrous consequences. Israel's military offensive in Gaza has killed more than 64,000 Palestinians, most of them civilians. In a related development, Germany, Britain and France have called for an immediate halt to Israel's military offensive in Gaza City and condemned Israel's strike on Qatar this week. The foreign ministers of the three European powers said in a joint statement that the focus must remain on reaching a permanent ceasefire, the release of all remaining hostages and flooding Gaza with aid to stop the famine. They urgently call for an immediate halt to Israeli military operations in Gaza City, which are causing mass civilian displacement, civilian casualties and destruction of essential infrastructure. The ministers also called for the United Nations and humanitarian non-governmental organizations to be able to work safely and at a scale across the entire strip, including the north. They added Israel's strike on Tuesday on Doha violates Qatar's sovereignty and risks further escalation in the region. They highlighted that Qatar is playing a vital role in seeking to mediate between Israel and Hamas so as to reach a solution to the conflict. President Ahmed al-Shara said Syria is negotiating with Israel to reach a security agreement that would see Israel leave areas it occupied after the December overthrow of Bashar al-Assad. As the opposition forces toppled Assad on the 8th of December, Israel deployed troops to the UN-patrolled buffer zone on the Golan Heights, which has separated Israeli and Syrian forces since an armistice that followed the 1973 Arab-Israeli War. Israel has also launched hundreds of airstrikes on targets in Syria and carried out incursions deeper into the south. Syria's new authorities, however, have not responded to the attacks. Shara said Israel believed that Syria had quit the 1974 disengagement agreement after Assad's fall, even though Syria from the first moment expressed its commitment to the accord. He noted that negotiations are underway on a security agreement to return Israel to where it was before 8th December. Israel and Syria have no diplomatic relations, with the two countries technically at war since 1948. Sushila Karki, a former Chief Justice, became the first woman to lead Nepal as she took the oath of office as interim premier after violent anti-graft protest forced Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli to resign. President Ramachandra Paudel's office announced Karki's appointment following negotiations between Paudel, Army Chief Ashok Raj Sigdel and the protesters who led Nepal's worst upheaval in years. Parliament was later dissolved and elections were set for the 5th of March next year. The only woman to have served as Chief Justice, Karki was the preferred choice of the protesters, who cite her reputation for honesty and integrity and a stance against corruption. She held the top judicial post for about a year until mid-2017. The protest was sparked by a social media ban that has since been rolled back. The violence subsided only after Oli resigned on Tuesday. At least 51 people were killed and more than 1,300 injured this week in the anti-graft protest by the Gen Z movement, named for the age of its mainly young supporters. On a related note, after 4 tumultuous days, calm returned at the India-Nepal border, with security personnel from the neighbouring country returning to their posts to offer relief to stranded travellers. Trade resumed at the India-Nepal border after the Himalayan nation started to show signs of normalcy following a week of intense anti-graft protest. Hundreds of trucks loaded with goods were stranded on roads at the border, affecting trade and incurring losses for traders of both nations due to the protests. While cross-border movement has reopened, Indian citizens are being allowed to enter Nepal on a case-to-case basis as part of a precautionary measures. At least 25 Nepali tankers entered India to get oil as Nepal faces a shortage of petrol at fuel stations.
डर तो लगेगा कि कोई भी पत्थर मार देगा, कोई भी कुछ ही कर देगा। लेकिन ये है कि अब जाना तो पड़ेगा, माल लाने हम, मजबूरी तो है ही है। पक्का माल लोटा खड़े रहते, प्याज लदा सड़ जाएगा।
Wedged between India and China, Nepal has grappled with political and economic instability since the abolition of its monarchy in 2008, while a lack of jobs drives millions to seek work in other countries. Still ahead, United Airlines plane makes emergency landing in Japan. Two people appear to have sustained minor injuries after United Airlines flight heading to Cebu in the Philippines made an emergency landing at an airport in Japan's western city of Osaka. The Boeing 737-800 aircraft, which departed from Narita Airport near Tokyo, made an emergency landing at Kansai International Airport after a cargo fire indicator activated while flying over the Pacific Ocean. United's Flight 32 was about an hour into the 4-hour flight, flying at 34,000 feet over the Pacific Ocean when it diverted to the northwest. The airline said in a statement the two female injured passengers were transported to the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. A total of 142 passengers and crew members on board evacuated the aircraft using the emergency slides. The courier also noted that an initial maintenance check showed no indication of a fire on the airplane. Some 300 South Korean workers returned home and reunited with their families 1 week after being detained in a large-scale U.S. immigration raid at a battery project site in Georgia. Workers wearing face masks began disembarking a chartered plane at Incheon Airport and were greeted with cheers from officials, including the presidential chief of staff. The return capped a week of intense negotiations by Seoul to win their release and bring them back home after they were taken into custody in handcuffs and shackles, shocking many in South Korea, a key U.S. ally. South Korean businesses have long struggled with obtaining proper visas for specialist workers needed at project sites for months at a time, which has led to some workers relying on grey areas in U.S. visa enforcement. On a related note, South Korean Foreign Minister Cho Hyun said U.S. President Donald Trump has called the detention of South Korean workers in Georgia wrong and ordered officials to review all options. Cho, who traveled to Washington this week to press for a swift resolution, said Seoul and Washington had agreed to establish a working group to create a new visa category after his meeting with U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio.
이 문제를 보다 근본적으로 해결하기 위해서 국무부와 우리 외교부 간에 워킹그룹을 만들어서 새로운 비자 카테고리를 만드는 것, 또 한국에서 투자와 관련된 기업 투자와 관련된 업무에 종사하시는 분들을 가장 빠르게 비자를 받을 수 있도록.
He added that Trump's directive effectively overrode earlier positions expressed by other U.S. departments. South Korea has pushed for years for a bill that would create or expand visa categories to accommodate skilled South Korean nationals who need to visit the U.S. for longer periods. Gold prices in Japan have reached their highest levels in over 50 years, prompting a surge in market activity. Recently, gold prices in the country have repeatedly reached new highs, even breaking records unseen in over 50 years. At one point, the retail price of 1 gram of gold exceeded 19,000 yen, about $128.46 US. Compared to the same period last year, Japan's retail prices of gold have risen by nearly 50%. The increase has directly influenced consumer behavior and trading patterns in the country's gold retail market.
金が上がってきて皆さんも何回も売却したと思います。最後に残っているのを売りに来られるお客様を多く増えていると感じます。
For Japanese investors, amid inflationary pressures and a weak yen against the US dollar, gold-related exchange-traded funds are increasingly viewed as an insurance policy in their investment portfolios. They serve to mitigate risks related to exchange rates, inflation, and global economic uncertainty. Credit rating agency Fitch downgraded France's sovereign credit score to the country's lowest level on record, stripping the Eurozone's second-largest economy of its AA- status as it grapples with political crisis and ballooning debt. The move, bringing Fitch's score to a plus, heaps pressure on Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu just days into the job as he scrambles to form a cabinet and draft a 2026 budget that can pass a deeply divided parliament. Fitch said the rating, the lowest on record for a major credit rating agency, has a stable outlook for future moves, attributing its cut to the lack of a clear horizon for debt stabilization in subsequent years. According to analysts, the downgrade was already priced into markets. However, the timing of the move is awkward for France and underlines growing investor concerns over its ability to rein in its budget deficit, now the highest in the Eurozone. President Emmanuel Macron this week tapped Lecornu, a conservative loyalist, to form a government after lawmakers ousted veteran centrist Francois Bayrou in a confidence vote over his plans for a €44 billion budget squeeze. A young Utah man suspected of killing the conservative activist Charlie Kirk at a university forum has been taken into custody, ending a two-day manhunt that helped fuel national concern over a rising tide of political violence in the U.S.
On the evening of September 11th, a family member of Tyler Robinson reached out to a family friend who contacted the Washington County Sheriff's Office with information that Robinson had confessed to them or implied that he had committed the incident. This information was relayed to the Utah County Sheriff's Office and scene investigators at Utah Valley University. This information was also conveyed to the FBI.
A family member interviewed by investigators said Robinson had become more political recently and spoke in a disparaging manner about Kirk. Meanwhile, officials said the investigators discovered a bolt-action rifle wrapped in a towel and inscriptions were engraved on casings found with the rifle. Next up in sports, Leverkusen clean first season win under new coach. We begin our sports segment with badminton. National men's singles shuttler Leong Junhao's hopes of advancing to the semi-finals of the Hong Kong Open were dashed after he lost to second seed Li Shifeng of China in the quarterfinals. The world number 23 was forced into a grueling rubber set before bowing out to Shifeng 2022, 21-14, 2022 in a 1 hour 18-minute battle at the Hong Kong Coliseum. It was Junhao's sixth defeat in 7 encounters against Shifeng. The loss also ended Malaysia's men's singles campaign in the Super 500 tournament. Shifeng is scheduled to face France's Christo Popov in the semi-finals. Moving on to football, Bayer Leverkusen clinched their first win of the Bundesliga season with a hard-fought 3-1 victory over fellow Champions League contenders Eintracht Frankfurt thanks to Alex Grimaldo's double strike. This marks a successful debut for new coach Kasper Hjulmand. Hjulmand took over this week following the sacking of Erik ten Hag after Leverkusen failed to win either of their first 2 league matches. Leverkusen, who travelled to FC Copenhagen in their Champions League opener next week, opened the account with Spain international Grimaldo's stunning 25-metre free kick into the top corner. Nathan Tella and Patrick Schick each came close before the latter bagged a second goal with a stoppage time penalty awarded for a foul on the former. The visitors, who host Galatasaray next week in the Champions League, pulled a goal back 7 minutes after the restart with Can Uzun's volley, and in the 59th, Leverkusen saw captain Robert Andrich dismissed with a second booking. Teller should have scored in the 84th minute, but keeper Michael Zetterer blocked his close-range shot. The hosts then were left with 9 players after Ezequiel Fernandez got his marching orders with a second yellow card in a bad-tempered finale before Grimaldo settled nerves with another superbly taken free kick in stoppage time. Elsewhere, Al Ittihad defeated Al Fateh 4-2 to maintain their perfect start to the new Saudi Pro League season with 2 wins from 2 matches. Dutch winger Steven Bergwijn bagged a brace for the defending champions after Algerian international Houssem Aouar opened the scoring with Matias Vargas netting for the visitors. Al Fateh went down to 10 men on the stroke of half-time when Morocco's Mourad Batna was shown a second yellow for a late challenge in Fabinho. Al Ittihad's numerical advantage on the pitch only lasted until the 58th minute, however, as Serbian goalkeeper Predrag Rajkovic was given a straight red card. His replacement between the sticks, Mohamed Al-Absi, then conceded a penalty which was put away by Algeria's Sofiane Bendebka. Mohanad Al-Shantiti restored the host 2-goal advantage in injury time to put the result beyond doubt and see a Laurent Blanc's side top of the table. Manchester United's Altay Bayinde will keep his place in goal for Sunday's derby at Manchester City ahead of new signing Sean Lemons. United's former first-choice goalkeeper Andre Onana, who endured a turbulent spell at Old Trafford, completed a loan move to Turkish side Trabzonspor on Thursday. The deal followed United's deadline day signing on Lemons from Royal Antwerp for £18.2 million. Turkey international Bayinde has started all three of United's Premier League games this season, while the 29-year-old Onana only played once in United's shock second-round League Cup loss to fourth-tier Grimsby Town in a penalty shootout after the sides drew 2-2. Onana was at fault for Grimsby's 2 goals.
It's a different league. It's a different country, different trainings, different ball. So we'll try to maintain that, and they will fight for the position. So for me, for this game, it's clear Altay will start.
Manager Ruben Amorim also explained why United chose Lemons over Aston Villa's Emi Martinez, saying that Lemons has a great potential to be the club's goalkeeper for a lot of years. He also confirmed new signing Matheus Cunha, who has played all 4 games in all competitions for United, will miss the derby through injury, as will Mason Mount and Diogo Dalot. In cycling, Jasper Philipsen edged a bunch sprint to claim Vuelta a España Stage 19 victory, racking up his 3rd win of the race. General classification leader Jonas Vingegaard extended his lead on Joao Almeida by 4 seconds to 44 seconds overall, as he claimed a bonus on the intermediate sprint. After an individual time trial on Thursday that was shortened for security reasons, riders travelled a flat 162 kilometres from Merida to Guayjelo, past vineyards and quiet countryside. Jakub Ottruba and Victor Grunelec formed the day's 2-man break, with the peloton letting them go during a relaxed start. Ottruba dropped Grunelec and pushed on lone into a headwind around 4 minutes ahead of the peloton. Vingegaard grabbed 4 bonus seconds in the intermediate sprint as he edged Mads Pedersen, with UAE team Emirates and Almeida both caught on their heels. With around 50 kilometers remaining, Ottruba was swallowed by the peloton, who travelled in unison towards Guayjuelo, jostling for position ahead of the expected bunch sprint finale. Pedersen went early, but Belgian Philipsen held him off comfortably to complete a Vuelta hat-trick following the riders' triumphs on stages 1 and 8. Today, riders face the daunting final mountain stage, running 166 kilometers from Robledo de Chavela to Bola del Mundo. Hyundai's French driver Adrien Fourmarc emerged from the narrow forest roads on the Rally Chile with a razor's edge on second lead on stablemate Belgian Thierry Neuville. Oditi Tanak had been leading into the 6th and final stage of the day, but suffered motor problems that forced him out of the race. Toyota's Sebastian Ogier was right on their tail at 2.3 seconds as the Frenchman chases a 9th World Championships crown in a tight 4-way struggle for the title. Also in Toyota, championship leader with 3 races left after Chile, Elfyn Evans himself sat 5th overnight, 13 seconds down on the lead. Finland's Kalle Rovanperä was off the pace after losing a tyre, but has much to fight for as he sits in second in the race for the championship. There are 6 more specials today, with rain and mist expected. From Mario-related objects to horror collection, take a look at amazing offbeat stories this week. Surrounded by thousands of objects bearing the likeness of Nintendo's mustachioed plumber, 40-year-old Kikai reflects that his life would be totally different without Mario, who also marks 4 decades this week. The colorful Super Mario Bros. Released for Nintendo's home consoles in Japan on the 13th of September 1985 was a landmark of early video gaming. Players control the eponymous character as he ran and hopped his way from left to right ride through a colorful world of platforms, pipes, and scrolling enemies. Created by legendary game designer Shigeru Miyamoto, Mario has obsessed several generations of fans like Kikai. Kikai said his father bought him the game and he has been playing for as long as he can remember. His office is lined with somewhere between 20 and 30,000 Mario-related objects, from plastic figurines to plush toys and cupboards.
やっぱりちゃんと僕が集め始めたのは高校生になって自分でバイトしてお金を稼ぐようになってからだと思いますね。その当時は今ほどマリオグッズってたくさん出てなかったんですけど、本当にわずかに出るグッズを求めていろいろあちこち探してた覚えがあります。リサイクルショップとか。
He added Mario's popularity has really skyrocketed in the last 5 to 10 years and there has been a ton of merchandise released. Director Guillermo del Toro is auctioning part of his collection of monsters and fantasy objects that are frequently the subject of his Gothic films. This came on the heels of a 3-part auction starting this month.
I'm 60. You have to estate plan. You have to take care of the children, and these are all my children. I gotta make sure they go to good homes. Yeah.
Items for sale include concept sketches from his 1992 film Kronos, an original figure of the amphibian from The Shape of Water, and the 2 original plates from the adaptation of Frankenstein by Bernie Wrightson. Del Toro, known for blending fantasy and horror in films, said he has been obsessed with Mary Shelley's novel, first published in 1818, since he was a boy and had always wanted to create his own film version. Deadly wildfires in Los Angeles earlier this year influenced Del Toro's decision to auction. And that wraps up World Today. In our top story, United Nations endorses declaration on two-state solution. Tune in to Malaysia Tonight, coming up at 8:30 p.m. on TV1 and Salaran Berita RTM. Till then, I'm Olivia Nicholas, Malaysia Madani, Rakyat Disantuni. Thank you for watching. Have a good day.